I think I'm going to start off with talking about two things. Number one, our expectations for going there, and number two, our reasons for going there in whichever order. For me, at least, I was really excited for you guys to meet him. I was really excited for you guys to train with him. I was really excited to see him. It's been 3 years since I've seen him myself, and every single time I go back to Bacolod, I am I'm privy, or I'm able to glance or see a new aspect of Pekiti, a new perspective of Pekiti that I have not seen, neither in my own training and neither in other people's training or teaching. You may have seen glimpses of it, but a lot of things just sort of crystallize when you, or make a lot more sense when you go to the Philippines with GT. Suddenly you have a lot of aha moments when you're training with him. At least that's my experience. And I told Zarir this when I was there. If I can take back even one thing that I'm going to add to my daily training schedule, then it's worth it. And generally I come back with a lot more stuff. The way I structure my training trips normally is through my own solo practice in the Philippines. I revise what GT has given us or given me, and so that by the time I come back to India, I already know what I'm going to practice when I come back to India. So those are my reasons. The other interesting part about you three is that you three are very different experience levels, and so you're going to have very different reasons and expectations and outputs from this trip. I think let's start with Zarir, because Zarir is the newest to to this art. He's been training for only a few months, but when I asked around if people wanted to accompany me, he was one of the first to be like, me, I. So yeah, now your turn.
Yeah. Well, it was an amazing trip. I actually, until we actually figured out all the logistics and everything, I wasn't sure whether it was actually going to happen or not. Having gone there and come back, and it's been some time now, I just look back really fondly because, like Aditya said, I started just a few months ago, and I was probably like still I'm beginner level and hadn't learned as much before this, and then all of a sudden you're just thrown in with a grandmaster, like a legendary teacher like GT, and you kind of just have to go with the flow, which is something I was struggling with in any case. So just a few just a few minutes, just a few hours with him every day really kind of has been immensely uh, valuable for my development, for my early development in this art form.
But why did you like? I'm curious. Like, what were your expectations going in there? Like, what were your reasons for going there?
Uh, Honestly, like it's a how many people can say, regardless of what their experience level is, how many people can say that they got the chance to train with a grandmaster, with a Grand Tuhon like GT? So, I mean, I was telling one of you during the trip that um, regardless of what field you're in or what your discipline is, whether it's martial arts or professionally or whatever it is, like how often do you get to be with the person who literally, is like basically GT personifies Kali, and so to be able to like to have the opportunity to go and train with him, even just spend time with him, that was probably the biggest motivation.
I mean, I think the reason why I started with you is because I got a comment on one of the YouTube videos where somebody was like, "At what level? No, what level of skill are your students at that they have come? Because this can't be a trip that you would just be open or keep open for anybody." And I think that really exemplifies sort of the approaches that a lot of people take to training with some of these people, some of these like grandmasters, some of these old time masters, is that it's a very intimidating thing to embark on a journey like this, and most people would not do it with as little training as you have. But it was extremely cool that you had the, I don't know whether maybe you approached it differently, or it was a courage thing. I'm not exactly sure, but having you there was very cool for me, because while GT taught you, a lot of things got clearer for me. Um, and I think that uh, he also really appreciated the fact that you were there in spite of not having that much experience in the art. So I am really really glad that you're there, and you are also another example of how, if i- if you are willing to go through the process, then you can go and train with GT regardless of whatever skill level you're at. So I think that that's a really cool thing.
I'm not going to
Shweta,
lie though, it was extremely intimidating.
yeah,
So that definitely was there, but like I do appreciate that. Obviously, all of you, like you said earlier, all of you are at different levels, but everyone. So I'm learning from my teacher, that is you. I'm learning from your teacher, that's GT, and also from the group, and we get to like partner. So I mean, all of that together was helped out a lot. But it obviously is extremely intimidating to be in the same room as GT.
Shweta, what about you? Like, you've been training with me for a while now as well. Um, I know you come from a slightly different place of, well, similar but slightly different also. You've also always been very fascinated by swords and blades. But what made you decide that this was a good time, or that you would want to go and train in the Philippines with GT?
To be honest, I was waiting for an opportunity for
Oh,
a really long time for someone to say, "Hey, let's go train with GT." But it just never came up. We've been training together for what, 5-ish years now, on and off, and most of it has been online. And the only times that I actually get to train with people is when I come to the school to train with you, and pick something up and then come back and work on it on my own, and our online sessions whenever that happens. Um, I was hoping to do this for a really long time, but because we've never spoken about it, and this was like the
also we
first
were in the middle of a pandemic.
that,
That was
yeah.
the reason. I haven't gone myself in like 2 3 years.
Yes. Yes, and this looked like a fine time to do it. And I've known you guys a while also, and we were comfortable with each other. I understand how you teach, so I knew that even if I don't understand what GT is going to teach me, there's always going to be time for us to discuss and iron those things out. So, yeah, I was looking forward to it even before we actually planned for it. And the moment it showed up, I wanted to hop on.
I think Neha is the most Kali obsessed of us here, including me. Um, she she is she's been bitten bad by the Kali bug,
Yes.
and she has now this cool martial maiden page. But why did you want to go train with GT? Or why did you want to go to the Philippines to train with GT?
I mean, why? It just seems like such an, like, why wouldn't I? Do you know what I mean? It just was
I
such.
mean, the reason why I'm saying this is because, again, the sort of way that you guys, this why wouldn't I sort of attitude is extremely refreshing, because it's not actually very common in the Filipino martial arts world. You generally have, the way that it is, at least it can be extremely political, it can be extremely intimidating, it can be extremely hierarchical. So for people to just be like, yeah, well, why wouldn't I want to go to the Philippines? Because just think about what we did, right? We went, it took us over 48 hours coming back, 24 hours going there, to a city you've never heard of, to a country that most people think is extremely dangerous, even though, again, having been there many many times, nothing's ever happened to me or around me. To go train with a person you've never seen, an 84-year-old person you've never seen, you don't know. I mean, the place that we're staying is unfamiliar, the training method is unfamiliar, the city is unfamiliar, the country is unfamiliar, the language is unfamiliar, the training partners could be unfamiliar, everything. It's And also you're going there, it's a different thing if you're going to, if I ran a camp, let's say, right? But you're going to this legendary teacher, and most people are intimidated by, am I good enough? That's the big question. Am I good enough? But you guys were like, screw it. we'll figure it out, which is really great. Like, I know this sounds like a criticism, but genuinely it is something that I really admire, and I like, and I am quite it's quite refreshing. I'm done with my rant now.
Okay. So I'm glad the ranting is continuing. So I will couch it this way. My absolutely, and let me say that if somebody else had come to me, or if I had, there was a chance to go train with GT without you, I don't know that I would have been as sort of like, yeah, of course, about it, like as sort of like obviously, a lot of you have to understand that my Kali experience has come filtered through your Kali experience, right? So a lot of like what I know of Kali has also come because you're my teacher, right? And I've heard you say things so many times, like it's so important to be immersed in that culture. It's not just about training Kali in a vacuum. Like, you do need to have that cultural experience, to be exposed to it. Also, this whole idea of you being there, and we've all talked about this. I mean, I think especially me and Z, I think had a long discussion about you being there as a buffer. So while it wasn't about you having to protect us or shield us in any way, but it was almost like this interpretive value where maybe we wouldn't have been able to get the amount out of the trip if we weren't going through you. So I mean, one of my answers to this is I was super excited to go because I was going with you and with this group of people, and obviously when I say obviously, I mean, to train with GT is just, it's a dream, right? Like, I mean, the fact that any of us got to do this. But yeah, but I think I've heard so much about even you saying that, like, unless I've heard you say this many times that I will only promote somebody to Agalon if they've been to the Philippines. So guess what?
Yeah.
Guess what? I'm on track right now. Just so
No pressure.
Just to clarify for people who are watching, essentially having trained with GT for so many years, I know the way he teaches, I know the way he likes to teach, the way what he likes people to do, and oftentimes it can be very daunting for people who are not familiar with that process to learn from him, because he'll show you one thing in 20 different ways, and you're just like, which one am I supposed to do? So a lot of times what I would do for these guys is I would break down everything, the 20 different ways he's shown us, into like digestible chunks, and we would either in the session itself go over it, or we would do some extra sessions post training when GT go home, where I would break things down and be like, okay, this is what we did, this is what we did, this is how you train at home, this is how this fits with that, and I just put everything into context, because again, I've seen people struggle, and essentially for me the big thing with you guys was, you're making this massive step, because it is a big thing, and there are very few people. I remember telling you all this, that how many people get to spend 10 days in the Philippines training with GT? There are very few. And if you want to know Pekiti, if you want to understand Pekiti while he's still around, this is, all of us are just reflections of him, different reflections of him. He is the source, and so we want to, while we can, spend as much time with the source as possible. But you're spending all this money, you're spending all this time, you're making this huge commitment. I want you guys to come back with material that you can spend, that you can practice. I don't want you guys to have just gone there, had an amazing experience, and then come back, and then when you have to train it, you got nothing, right? Because then that's a great experience, but what have you taken away from that? I'm not so sure. So that was one reason why I spent a lot of time doing that. And also it was interesting for me because spending time breaking GT stuff down in a way for all three of you to understand at different levels helped me understand the material a lot better. So that was cool.